Week 2 of the 2024 NFL season is here. Week 1 was quite the adventure. We're back for another week on the journey that is another NFL season. It's Mitch here, giving you my pick straight up and versus the spread for every single game this NFL season, this time for week 2 of the 2024 NFL season. Don't forget to Gronk spike the like button and subscribe for weekly NFL picks just like this, including best bets. If you're wondering, and you're live, and you're watching, hey Mitch, why can't I comment? You have to be a YouTube member to comment on these live streams every single week. So shout out to the YouTube members, the people that are supporting me here on the channel. Love you all. We're going to talk to you throughout these picks and get your picks throughout the video. It's $3 a month to become a member for the BLV, $3 Canadian a month to become a member of the BLV. And you get the perks just like members only chats. Okay, so in week number 1, we didn't do too bad in terms of our picks. 11-5 straight up. 10-7 versus the spread, or 10-6 versus the spread. I don't think that's terrible for week 1. I don't think that's great for week 1. So I feel like we could do a little bit better in week 2. And I do feel like I like the best bets better for week 2. And I do feel like this card is probably from top to bottom a little bit more enticing. And then, of course, we always have to look out in week 2 for overreaction. We can't really get too persuaded into, okay, this happened in week 1, but our prior was this, and let's completely fade what we thought about the team in the offseason, and let's now back everything we saw in week 1. Like, no, that's not how this works. You need to be able to take certain things from week 1, learn from it, but not overreact to it, right? So let's just say hello to the chat before we get started. What's up, Big Al? What's up, Harley? Sing. Thank you guys for tuning in to the live. Big Al also killed it on his picks. He went 13-3 straight up and 11-5 ATS. Okay, let's get started with our first game of the week. That is the Buffalo Bills at the Miami Dolphins. Miami is favored by 2.5 in this game. And the game is, of course, in Miami. It's Thursday night. It's tomorrow. It's a live stream on the Bottom Line View. It's going to be a lot of fun. I think this game could be one of the best Thursday night games we get all season. And I'm excited we're getting it early in the season. Last week's Thursday night game was a lot of fun, right? The opening kickoff game between the Chiefs and the Ravens. I think this one will also be pretty darn excellent. I think this game could go either way. I'm having a tough time with this one because honestly, like, I'm kind of split. Like, my brain says if the Dolphins are going to beat the Bills this year, it has to be this game. Like, it has to be this game. It's in Miami. It's in September. It's hot. It's humid. The Bills have injuries on defense. Teron Johnson, Matt Milano out. He might be back for the second matchup. I'm not exactly sure when they play the second time. I would assume it would be later in the year. And Miami does have injuries at running back, but that's running back in a, McDaniel system. We saw how that worked out with Shanahan. It wasn't really too big of a deal on that Monday Night Football game going from CMC to Mason. I would expect similar things from rather it be Mostert to, Wright or A-Shane to Wright. Regardless, I feel like running backs in Miami will have success if that run game is to have success, right? Now, part of me is also thinking this is Josh Allen as an underdog, looked like the MVP of the sport last week. They were trailing, I think, 17-0 or 17-3 to Arizona last week. They were still able to come back, persevere, and win this game. And they were actually like in a comfortable hold of the game, but there was a kick return as well. So that kind of threw things off and made it look more competitive in the end than it actually was on the scoreboard in the late portion of the game, where the Bills were totally controlling and dictating the game. But that was the Cardinals, a team that does have a really fun, high-flying offense, but a pretty limited overall defense with not a lot of talent. Miami, and that was also in Buffalo, Miami has a more talented secondary and more talented overall defense. They've got just as good, if not better, of an offense. So there's things that kind of like conflict in terms of what I feel and what I want to pick. So ultimately, I have to go with my guy Josh Allen here. Like, I don't know. This might be like heart over head. This might be bias. I have to go with Josh Allen. I just don't feel like he's going to lose this game. Like, the Bills just don't lose to the Dolphins. I don't remember how many times it's been in a row, but the Bills just own the Dolphins at this point. And when you look at Josh Allen's track record against the Dolphins, it's pretty incredible. Like, if he doesn't throw for 300 yards or score 4 touchdowns, it's kind of like a disappointing game for him. And I think people are going to kind of be like, this is a new Bills. They're run heavy. Like, they don't have Stephon Diggs. Like, Allen's not going to put up those stats. I wouldn't be so fast on that. It feels like the Bills, they found some weapons. Like, Kincaid was quiet last week, but that was mostly because the Cardinals paid a lot of attention to him. I think he could bounce back this week. We saw James Cook do his thing on the ground. Khalil Shakir scored. Mac Hollins scored. Dawson Knox nearly scored. I think it was called back. Josh Allen, had 2 rushing touchdowns. They've got enough weapons to get this thing done and to score points and to distribute the ball. I feel like the Bills will have a balanced attack. I think they'll be able to run the ball a bit. I think Josh Allen will have some own design runs. I think they'll be probably the better team in the red zone. I feel like you can always count on Allen on third down to make some crazy plays. And when we saw them last, right, there was, I think, a punt return that went the Bills' way or something, but it was just the difference to me in Allen's play versus Tua's play in a big moment, in a big game, in a primetime setting. Like, Allen was outrageous, while Tua was kind of like made some mistakes, like wasn't up to the task, like was pressured. And that's another thing that I think people are going to sleep on in this matchup. The Bills' pass rush is pretty darn good. They have Ed Oliver. They have Gregory Rousseau, who had 3 sacks against the Cardinals, and Kyler Murray, who's a much more mobile and kind of shifty quarterback than somebody like Tua. Equally kind of not great offensive lines, but probably the Cardinals are probably more talented. The Dolphins have a more decisive scheme and they can get the ball out quicker. But I honestly don't know if that's really what you want to be against Buffalo. Like, Buffalo is not a team that you want to really like just be throwing the ball out and getting it out quick. Like, I think you want to actually be kind of targeting some of their deeper areas, like in the middle of the field against, these nickel corner without Teron Johnson, the linebacker level, the safeties. You kind of want to be going down the field. So can Tua decisively get the ball out quick, but get it down the field, get it to the intermediate level, get it down, to the sidelines. I do like the Bills' perimeter corners, though. When it comes to Douglas and Benford, I thought they did a great job against Marvin Harrison. And really, to me, that kind of like the point that I think is going to be the difference. I think that the Bills are going to do a better job of maneuvering the pass rush, and Allen and this offensive line are going to do a better job of, getting around this pass rush and making plays. And I feel like Tua is going to struggle more in big moments against the Bills pass rush, and this Dolphins offensive line is going to struggle more with the Bills pass rush than I feel the Bills will struggle with the Dolphins pass rush. So that's kind of the difference to me in the game. But I think it's going to be really, really close. I'm going to go like 27-24 Buffalo, something like that. I'm not a true believer in Miami's defense quite yet. There was a reason they were down 17-0 or something like that in the game, and they had to come from behind. I don't really think that they can do that or afford that against the Bills, because the Bills can run the ball. The Bills can really, that's the way they want to play. They want to be able to rush the quarterback. They want to be able to run the ball late in the game. If they get behind Buffalo, that's going to be tough. They need to start faster. They need to get out, and they need to get a lead. So I'm going to go with Buffalo, but this is going to be a good one. Like, how does Buffalo determine to cover Waddle and Tyreek? How did they also try to slow down Miami's running game? What did they learn from Jacksonville in that regard? And then how does Miami like try to cover the Bills on top of bringing the rush against Buffalo? Because you would think that Miami might want to blitz a little bit against the Bills, but will they, try to play a little bit more man coverage in this game, being that they might feel like Ramsey and Fuller can maybe hold their own on the outside? It's going to be interesting to see what the Dolphins and the Bills do from a defensive standpoint to try to slow down these offenses, because both of them can attack you in a variety of ways. They're just very different. I feel like the Bills, they're more power element, while the Dolphins are more speed. So this is going to be a great game. I can't wait for it. I'm going to go with the Bills as the underdog with the points. I'm going to go with the quarterback, Josh Allen, who's playing the best of any player in football in week 1. So I'm just going to go with that. And I probably won't bet it, but if I do bet it, it'll be something like the Bills to win by like 1 score or something like that, and try to really go for it. But yeah, Miami -2.5. You guys let me know what you think. Let's see what Outlier has to say about this game. So in terms of this matchup, we have or what do I want to do here? Public betting. Okay. So we have the Bills on the money line. They have won 8 out of their last 10 games. Miami has won 6 out of their last 10. Against the spread, Buffalo has covered 8 of their last 10 games, while Miami has covered, when you look at that, last year they were pretty bad. Last 4 games, they weren't able to cover as, rather a favorite or an underdog, but this past game, they didn't do too bad. Then the over has been pretty unsuccessful for Buffalo bettors. They've only hit 3 out of their last 10. The under has been more successful, and it might be a sneaky under, but I wouldn't bet that. I wouldn't really bet the total. It's a pretty high number at 49.5. I wouldn't necessarily bet that. The percentage of bets, money line, we've got 70% on the Dolphins, 30% on Buffalo. Money, 61% on Miami, 39% of the money is on Buffalo. In terms of the spreads, 77% on the Bills, 42% of the money on the Bills. That's pretty interesting. Big discrepancy there. So more money on Miami to cover. That would usually indicate the sharp bettors are on Miami, but only 23% of the bets. Meanwhile, 73% of the bets are on the over, and 70% of the money is on the under, which is a pretty huge discrepancy as well. So that's also pretty interesting. More bets on the under, more money on the under, more money on the Dolphins. Okay, so we're going with the Bills though. So yeah, suck it. Anyways, let's get to Sunday, guys. If you haven't already, Gronk, spike the like button. Don't forget to subscribe. Let's get to the Sunday matchups. We've got the Las Vegas at the Baltimore Ravens. Shout out to Pixel, who's now in the chat. Okay, so the Ravens are 8.5-point favorites at home, and it was 9.5 before earlier today, and I may or may not have bet on this game on Patreon, just saying. But, just saying, if you want to support me on Patreon, check out my bets. But the Ravens are looked at as a contender, looked at as a top squad. And in week 1, they looked flawed, but they still made that thing really competitive against Kansas City in the opener. Now, Baltimore at home last year was pretty potent. They were pretty tough to stop. They blew out a lot of teams. But one team that they didn't blow out? They didn't blow out Gardner Minshew, if you recall. I'm just saying. They lost to Gardner Minshew last year. Just saying. And he was on the Colts. He wasn't on the Raiders. But I'm just saying, if you know what I'm getting at. But I actually like the Raiders with the points. I'm obviously taking the Ravens to win. It's the Ravens in their home opener. It's Lamar. It's what I saw from Isaiah Likely. I feel like Zay could have a better game here. I feel like the Ravens, they're just, better coach, better quarterback, very simple. But I kind of like the Raiders with the points, and the reason for it is I feel like the biggest edge in the entire game outside of quarterback and coach is the Raiders' defensive line against the Ravens' offensive line. Like, I think this is a pretty big discrepancy. We saw the Raiders, I feel, have been miscategorized after 1 week. They lost a game to the Chargers in which they turned it over 3 times. Multiple of those turnovers ended up being points for the Chargers. They had 2 4th and 1s in which they didn't decide to go for it. They missed a field goal, and they lost the turnover margin, 3-0 against the Chargers. And the Chargers, if they have anything that's better than the Ravens, it's 2 things. They have a better edge rush. Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack had monster games against the Raiders. And secondly, they have better tackles. And that actually slowed down one of the strengths of the Raiders, Max Crosby, with what they're now calling, I believe, Joe Alt Delete in Los Angeles. The Ravens' offensive line looked pathetic against the Chiefs. Lamar was running for his life. So if there is an edge for the Raiders to kind of disrupt this game, make it nasty, make it close, make it more competitive than people think, I think it's Max Crosby. I think it's Christian Wilkins. I think it's the D-line of the Raiders. And I also feel like the Raiders defense in general played well in week 1. I think it's underrated. I think it's a good unit. I think they're well coached. They'll have a plan to rush Lamar. And I wasn't impressed with the Ravens passing game. It was very short oriented, very, all at the line of scrimmage, bunch of screens. Like it was not my favorite offense I saw in week 1. Now I don't really trust Minshew enough to pull off the upset. I don't really trust the Raiders offense enough to pull off the upset. But they still got guys like Brock Bowers, Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers. I feel like they can make this one competitive. So I'll take the Raiders with the 8.5. I wish it was 9.5 still, but I'll take the 8.5. It's a lot of points for a team in the Ravens that I just felt were flawed in week 1. I don't know if they're really warranted to be laying this big of a number. So when we look at OUTLIER, what do they say about this one? So the Raiders, they have won 5, lost 5 on the money line. The Ravens have actually lost their most recent games. They've lost 3 of their 4 most recent games. In terms of the Raiders and the Ravens on the point spread, Ravens have failed to cover in 3 of their last 4. Raiders have looked pretty good against the spread lately. They have actually covered 8 of their last 10, including last season. No real edge on the over or the under. In terms of the percentage of bets, 98% on the Ravens, 93% of money on the Ravens on the money line. On the spread, 75% of bets on the Raiders, 24% of the money on the Raiders, 76% of the money on the Ravens, 25% of bets on the Ravens. So that's pretty interesting. That's a big discrepancy right there. Over, 85% on the over, 15 on the under, and 55% of the money is on the under, while 45% of the money is on the over. I would also lean towards the under as well at 41.5. I feel like this will be a more defensive game than an offensive game. Because I just believe the Raiders defense is better than the Raiders offense, period. So I'll probably be leaning towards the under in a lot of Raiders games overall, just to kind of throw that out there. But I'm going with the Ravens to win, Raiders to cover. The next matchup is the Los Angeles Chargers at the Carolina Panthers. Chargers are favored by 6.5. I'm going to save all of your time. There is no chance that I am taking the Panthers in any way, shape, or form for the rest of the NFL season. I do not care. They burned me in week 1. This is the worst football team I've ever seen. I am taking the Chargers. I don't care. Okay, the number is too big, but the Chargers could still win this by a touchdown. I do not care. I don't care. Okay, the Panthers, Bryce Young, he's terrible. The O-line played well last week. He was still terrible. I don't want to hear it. They can't run the ball. The defense is trash. Herbert will have success. They can block the Panthers easily. The Panthers have no pass rush. Derek Brown's done for the year. J.K. Dobbins is going to run all over the Panthers. So, yeah, I like the Chargers. I think they're going to win by like 10 probably. 10 to 14 points. I don't think the Chargers can really blow out any team in the NFL, but I feel like they'll control this game for the entirety. Given the coaching, Jim Harbaugh, they feel under control. They know what they want to be. They know, how to play to win these games, and they're not going to turn it over. They're not going to make mistakes. They're going to let the Panthers and Bryce Young do that. I think Dave Canales over his head right now. They need to figure things out in Carolina before I can really back them, even on the spread of 6.5, which does feel high, but not for this team. So let's just check out what OUTLIER has to say in terms of the Chargers and the Panthers. So both these teams have sucked on the money line as of late, but the Chargers did win their last game. Panthers have won 1 out of their last 10. Chargers have won 2 out of their last 10. Chargers have only covered 2 out of their last 10. The Chargers have actually covered less than the Panthers, which is pretty bad. But that was with Brandon Staley and company. In terms of the money line, 96% of the bets on the money line are on the Chargers. 4% of the bets are on the Panthers. 99% of the money is on the Chargers. 1% of the money is on the Panthers. 75% of bets are on the Panthers, which is crazy, while 84% of the money is on the Chargers. I've noticed this in every game. I kind of do wonder if OUTLIER is like almost glitching here, because this doesn't feel like it should be happening in every single game, this discrepancy. 84% of money and 25% of bets. That does feel odd. Maybe this is all sharp money early in the week. I'm not exactly sure why that's taking place, but I don't really have the information in front of me. But 88% of the bets are on the over for this game, while 77% of the money is on the over as well. This is 38.5, which is very low. So yeah, I mean, that does make sense. I feel like the over might not be a bad play here as well at 38.5, but yeah, I can't trust them. The Panthers suck, bro. They're so bad. I mean, has there ever been a worse team? Like, geez, they suck. All right, next up, Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the Detroit Lions. Detroit is favored by 7.5. So, the Detroit Lions, 7.5. They are at home. Tampa's dealing with a lot of injuries, which is why this number is 7.5. It was 6.5 not too long ago. Antoine Winfield is out. And also, I think Kalijah Kancey will be out once again this week. He was out last week as well. On top of that, McCollum's making his way back from a concussion. He might be active. He might be ready to go. He's their number 2 perimeter corner. Logan Hall is questionable, another one of their interior defensive linemen. He's not a huge difference maker, but the big names to know is Kalijah Kancey up front, Antoine Winfield in the back. Detroit's dealing with some guys banged up as well. Now, I'm not sure if any of them will be out, but they're dealing with some injuries at safety. I believe both Melon Fonwu and Joseph were on the injury reports when I checked it. So just look out for the injury reports as we get closer to the game. Don't really know on a Wednesday because some guys are just sitting to get rested. But in terms of the Bucs, there are serious injuries, which is why there's been movement on the line. But in terms of this game, this was a rematch, another rematch for Detroit from a playoff game a year ago. Detroit won the game by 8, 31-23 in Detroit last year. And I recall it as a closer game than 8 points, I would say. But Tampa, Mike Evans had a massive game. Baker had a pretty good game. I think there were a couple mistakes, if I'm not mistaken. Detroit kind of had their way through the air. This was a big Jared Goff game, if I recall correctly. A big Jared Goff game in the playoffs. I could see similar in this game. I think this could be a big Jared Goff game after what we saw last week was not so much a big Jared Goff game. I think Amon-Ra gets on track in this game. He probably catches close to 10 passes. I think Laporta could get on track in this game. I think the middle of the field will be more available. While we saw Jameson Williams break out on Sunday Night Football last week, I think he could hit another couple big plays in this game as Tampa is very aggressive. But I will say Tampa is one of those defenses that they're kind of like a jailbreak, right? Sometimes they'll make a play because they're so aggressive that it can result in tackles for loss. It can result in strip sacks. It can result in turnovers, tip passes, interceptions. And that can turn the tide of a game. That can create a, upset. I would expect a high-scoring game. The total is high for a reason. It's at 51.5. I was really impressed with Tampa's offense last week. I think their O-line is improved. I think that Graham Barton really helps them in the middle of their offensive line run the football, get movement up front and run the ball, and also pass protect. Mike Evans and Chris Godwin are tough for anybody. You throw in McMillan, he is also going to be dangerous. And Rachaad White and Irving are a nice little combination that can catch the football out of the backfield as well. I could see Baker and the Bucs throwing the ball pretty well in this game. The one thing they have to look out for is the pass rush of the Lions, which did have a good game against the Rams, but just couldn't quite get to Stafford. So Baker's going to have to be decisive, quick with his reads. And I do think Chris Godwin could have a huge game here in terms of working the underneath areas against Terrion Arnold, who also struggled with a similar player like Cooper Kupp, who largely works the underneath areas of the field. But Baker isn't quite Stafford, so I don't think it will be quite as close where the Rams nearly pulled off the upset. Todd Bowles is clearly not Sean McVay, so I do feel like Ben Johnson and company and Dan Campbell will have the edge coaching. I think that the Lions will win because I don't see how the Bucs with these injuries, especially arguably the best safety in football, is out. I just don't see how the Bucs are able to make enough stops, able to really, go to Detroit and win this game. If it was in Tampa, it'd be a little bit different, but I do think that with 7.5, that's a very big number for a team in Tampa that played this team competitively last year, and, they do have a good offense. So I feel like Tampa can stick in there and maybe make this one like a 27, 28, 24, or like a 31, 24, and even just cover by half a point. I think that half a point is really big, right? So I'm going to take the 7.5 because I think Baker, Evans, Godwin. I don't know if the Lions have clearly solved that area of their defense yet. I wasn't convinced by their performance against the Rams. I felt like they, even with an underwhelming, lackluster offensive line of the Rams, they still weren't able to make enough stops for them to control that game. So I think Tampa will move the ball. I think Tampa will keep it within a possession. I just think ultimately Detroit will have more success due to the coaching edge, and they're a healthier team. So I'll take Detroit, and they're at home. So I'll take Detroit to win, Tampa to cover, another one of those split decisions. Let's take a look at what Outlier has to say. Now, guys, if you're wondering, why can I not access the chat? You have to be a member of my YouTube channel. Sign up, $3 a month, Canadian, to become a member for the picks videos. This will only be for picks videos every week. But because this is one of the most popular videos on my channel, I think it's a way of showcasing our membership. So the people, like Harley, Big Al, Caesar, Singh, Jags fan, Pixel, the guys in the chat right now that are members, and we have, a ton of members that have recently signed up. They can actually ask me questions. They can give their insight on the games, and that's a little perk for them. So if you're wondering, that is why. In terms of the money line, Detroit, 86% of the bets, and actually, weirdly enough, at least this is what Outlier says, 50% of the money and 50% on both ways for the money line is on Tampa and Detroit. That is very odd, but that's what Outlier says. 88% of the bets is on Tampa, 12% for the spread, I should say, is on Detroit. Okay, but 70% of the money is on Detroit, and I think that's what pushed the line to 7.5. I will say that. Now, total, 65% on the over, 35% on the under, 85% of the money is on the over. That's also pretty big. So, yeah, interesting stuff right there. This is going to be a great game. I think it's one of the best games of the week. Tampa at Detroit. And Harley loves her Lions. She says Lions all the way. Okay. Colts at the Green Bay Packers. This may or may not be a best bet on the video coming shortly. I like the Colts a lot in this game. I am going to keep it simple for you guys, and you guys can check out the best bets video for maybe a little bit more depth on this bet. But let's keep it simple. Packers lost Jordan Love. They're going from Jordan Love to Malik Willis. Malik Willis sucks. He can't throw the football. He's terrible. period. Like, the guy can't throw. He can't read a defense. He can't maneuver the pass rush. So if this is Malik Willis, which I believe it will be Malik Willis and not a last-second Jordan Love. If it is Jordan Love, it might change everything. But if this is Malik Willis, this is just no-go. This is just like, I don't see how the Packers will move the ball well enough. The Colts should be able to load the box, stop the run, Josh Jacobs, the Packers. Matt LaFleur is a great coach. Don't get me wrong. This is the Green Bay Packers in Green Bay. You know, they're coming back from Brazil. They have to go through that travel, which is not really hurtful because they had extra days to come back from it, but also at the same time, it's still travel from a large distance. I just feel like the difference between Jordan Love and Malik Willis is so substantial. Like, Malik Willis couldn't even convert or couldn't even, like, execute a Hail Mary. Like, couldn't even execute a Hail Mary. And I watched Indianapolis against the Texans, and I saw a team that has a good offense. And that's what I'm backing in this situation. I'm backing Anthony Richardson's explosiveness against a defense that I don't think is as good as Houston's, a defense that I thought got ripped up by the Eagles. And if not for a couple Jalen Hurts boneheaded decisions, I feel like the Eagles should have won that game by more in the second half. You know, and the Packers kind of started that game kind of sloppy, and maybe perhaps the Packers could have won if not for the sloppy play in the first half. But it felt like Jalen Hurts made some stupid plays, and in fact, the Eagles could have blew them out. I look at Jonathan Taylor, this offensive line of the Colts. I think they can go to Green Bay. I think they can run the ball just like the Eagles, and Saquon did the same against the Packers. I think that will set Richardson up for success. Look out for Mitchell making some big plays in this game while Alexander is taking on Pittman. Mitchell could be the guy that really benefits in that scenario. Steichen is an excellent coach. I don't think he'll be outclassed by LaFleur. And I'm backing the team with their quarterback. Despite me loving the Packers for the entirety of the season, the difference between Love and Willis is just too substantial to ignore. I don't think the Packers will be nearly the same team. And given that they're weak on defense, I don't think this is a team that necessarily can withstand playing a backup quarterback. He's only been in the organization for like 3 weeks. So it's not like he's going to have a huge grasp of the system, the offense, the playbook, what they want to be, what they want to do. So I don't love it for the Packers this week. So let's take a look at what's going on OUTLIER. The Colts have lost their last 2 games on the money line, same as the Packers. The Packers were on a tear late last season, and the Colts, looked pretty good early, but faded down the stretch. That kind of had to do with Minshew. On the spread, the Colts have been pretty bad against the spread, but they did cover, I guess depending on the line, last week. Like, they covered 3, but they didn't cover 2.5. So I guess it kind of depends. OUTLIER's probably showing 2.5. Packers have been pretty good against the spread overall in their last 10, but it's hard to say because this is all Jordan Love stuff. This is all Gardner Minshew stuff. There's not a lot to learn there. The one thing I would say is the over, given both the coaches, LaFleur and Steichen, are offensive guys, there is trend here that the Packers and the Colts would play to an over 40.5, despite the lack of quarterback that the Green Bay Packers may be having at their disposal. The under has not been successful for either team. So maybe just don't bet the under in this game just because of Malik Willis. Maybe look at who the coaches are and say, hey, I can't really fade these guys given their schemes and given their intelligence. Money line, Colts 79%, Packers 21%. Money on the money line, 81% for the Colts, 19% for the Packers. Spread, 59% for the Colts, 41% for the Packers. 47% of the money is on the Colts, 53% of the money is on the Packers. I will say this, there are going to be people that bet the Packers, people that are considered sharps, because they're simply just backing Matt LaFleur, and they're backing the Packers at home, and they're backing a dome team going on the road, outdoors. And I get all that, but I just think Malik Willis is terrible at football. And if it's Malik Willis, I think you're going to make money on the Colts. That's just me. All right. Then We've got the Cleveland Browns at the Jacksonville Jags. Guys, Gronk spiked the like button. Don't forget to subscribe. Jacksonville, -3. Again, guys, not trying to overreact to week 1. But one thing we learned in week 1 is that Deshaun Watson still absolutely sucks. So, I am taking Jacksonville to win. I'm taking Jacksonville to cover. Jacksonville, I was actually pretty impressed in week 1, especially on defense. And the specific area I was impressed was their run defense. Their run defense was good last year. It looked good in week 1 against one of the best, most explosive running games in the league. Now they're playing Cleveland, a team that has to run the ball to move the ball. No David Njoku. Jacksonville at home opener in the humidity. Jacksonville's good typically in their home opener because of the advantage they have. They're playing an Ohio team going to Florida. I don't like this for Cleveland. I like Cleveland's defense, but I only think there's so much they can do. It feels like Cleveland is a team that doesn't believe in their quarterback, doesn't believe in their leader. They don't know who they are on offense. Jacksonville, they may have an overrated quarterback. Their O-line might suck, but I think they have enough at receiver. I think they have enough on defense. I trust Ryan Nielsen to confuse Deshaun Watson. I think Jacksonville wins this game on special teams, just like Dallas, on defense, just like Dallas, and they're at home. Dallas was on the road, and Cleveland, you look at their home road splits on defense last year, much better defense at home than on the road. So I also think Brian Thomas could have like a couple big plays. Cleveland likes to play man coverage. Feel like his speed could come in handy in this matchup. Evan Ingram, Christian Kirk. I think there's enough to win against man coverage. So I'm going to go Jacksonville to win, Jacksonville to cover. Let's see what Cleveland and Jacksonville looks like on OUTLIER. So 86% of the bets is on the money line to Jacksonville, 86% of the money as well. For the spread, 88% of the bets are on Cleveland, while 93% of the money is on Jacksonville. That feels crazy. 79% of the over and 55% of the under is on for the money right there. So that's interesting. In terms of trends, what do we see? We see a lot of overs for Cleveland. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in a row for Cleveland. Interesting. Meanwhile, Jacksonville, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out of 10. So overs kind of interesting there, especially given the trends of Cleveland's defense being they're not as good on the road. Over might be interesting. So I like Jacksonville -3. I like Jacksonville to win. Let's keep it simple. Let's fade the worst quarterback in the NFL. Next, the Seattle Seahawks at the best team in the NFL, the New England Patriots. 1-0. Patriots, shockingly 1-0. But no respect. Seattle favored in New England, in the opener, in Gillette, by 3 and the hook. This is Mike McDonald versus Gerard Mayo, two of the youngest coaches in the NFL. And the Patriots defense looked fantastic last week in Cincinnati. Now they get the home crowd advantage. I don't know if Harley Quinn will be there, but we will see. I don't know. Maybe. I'm not sure if she will be. She'll let us know. But I do know that our chat will be going wild because there is a little bit of belief in the Patriots after their upset in week 1 of the Bengals. Seattle, meanwhile, they played the Broncos. They got out to a big lead. They let them back in it. They allowed them to cover the 6.5 at the end of the day. Their offense sort of struggled to throw the ball because their protection wasn't ideal. Meanwhile, Kenneth Walker had a pretty big day, but I do believe he's banged up entering this game. Defensively, Seattle is pretty fantastic, and I like their defense a lot. I think their weakest area of their defense is probably their edge rush, and maybe their third corner, like their second perimeter corner. I think otherwise they've got two really good corners. Linebackers are solid. Interior D-line is really good. This should be a defensive game. It's the Patriots, of course, but Seattle also complements that as well. Patriots ran the ball well with Ramondre Stevenson, who looked like one of the best, if not the best, running back in the NFL in week 1. Patriots, I think, in this game need to find more success creating explosive plays. I'm not sure if they're going to be able to do that with Jacoby Brissett at quarterback, but I feel like it's needed. They need to hit a couple, even if it's a screen or something, yak play. They need to get a couple more explosives in this game. Turnovers are going to have to go their way as well. That is possible at home. Geno is known to take a sack or two. He is known to force the ball. He is, he took 2 safeties last week. I think the Seahawks took 2 safeties last week. So this one will be interesting. I think it could go either way, honestly. I actually picked the Patriots to beat Seattle on my opening schedule prediction of the 2024 season. And my reasoning behind it was the Patriots D-line versus the Seahawks O-line. That was my reasoning. I think the Patriots can win that matchup. I think the Patriots have good corners to match up with Seattle's receivers, which is one of their strengths. And I don't think that the running game of Seattle is really going to get a ton of push either. So I do think New England's defense will keep them in it, but I just don't know if I can trust the Patriots offense to score enough points here. I don't know if they have enough playmakers. I love Stevenson. Hopefully Henry does. I think Henry and Hooper are going to have to make some plays because I think that's the area the Patriots can attack, is that kind of middle of the field against those safeties, those linebackers. I think that's where the Patriots can maybe make some plays against Seattle's defense. Personally, I lean towards Seattle to win by a field goal. I kind of think it's going to be a sort of devastating Patriots loss. I sort of see it as a 17-14 type game. That's kind of how I feel it's going to go. If the Patriots can get a couple turnovers, some big plays on special teams again, things like that, they can definitely pull off the upset. But that's kind of the way I see it going. I think Seahawks win barely, and they just get by. I kind of want to see Drake May get in there. I feel like if Drake May were playing this game, although Mike McDonald's scheme is very hard and complex for a rookie to understand, as we saw with Bo Nix, I just feel like he would bring more playmaking and explosion to the offense that's desperately lacking. And even when you look at things like separation and things like that, Jalen Polk was one of the highest graded receivers last week for separation, but he barely got the ball. I think Jacoby was playing it very conservatively. Hopefully Jacoby can make a couple big plays in this game that he didn't make in week 1. They might have to, right? Last week they were in front the entire game, so they were able to play the way they exactly wanted to play it. And I just don't know if that's going to work out as fortunately for the Patriots. The Bengals got in their own way. I don't know if Seattle's going to do that. So I think Seattle's the more talented team in terms of explosiveness, playmaking, and that's why I have them winning barely. But New England could win. Their pass rush can get to Geno and cause a couple mistakes. That might be the turning tide that the Patriots need at home. So I'll take New England with 3.5 because this is going to be a very low-scoring game. But I'll take Seattle to win. Appreciate our first dislike of the video, you bastard. All right. Let's see what Outlier had to say about the Patriots and the Seahawks. Okay, so we've got the under for New England being fairly successful. 6 out of the last 10. No real trends. Seattle's been terrible against the spread, right? Last year, they were 0 for 9 in a row. So that's something to look at. The Seattle has not been good against the spread as of late. Maybe overvalued last year. But this is a new season. Money line, 77% of the bets are on Seattle. Meanwhile, 23% are on New England. But this is interesting. 41% of the money is on New England to win the game. Interesting. 85% of the bets is on New England against the spread. And only 10% of the money is on New England. Again, big discrepancy with the money and the spread and the bets that we're seeing on Outlier here. This could be a lot of early week information, though, of course. 90% of bets over, 10% on the under. 65% of the money is on the over, 35% on the under. I see it as probably an under, but I wouldn't exactly bet it, I don't think. I don't think I'm going to bet this one. Okay. So, that was New England and Seattle. Where were we at? Did we hit that one yet? Yeah, okay. So, we've got the New York Jets at the Tennessee Titans. Titans should have won last week if it were not for Will Levis. Will Levis pitching the ball to the defense for a touchdown. The Jets got shellacked on Monday Night Football. Spread is 3.5. Jets are expected to win. Jets are on the road. Titans are at home opener. This is an awkward spot for the Jets. It's a short week. Monday, Sunday. Titans were better in terms of, they should have beat the Bears. They should have beat the Bears. Like I said, Titans, too many mistakes. Punt block, interception. They were up 17-0. They still failed to cover. I think the Titans cover, though. I think the Jets win. I think the Jets are better. And basically the difference here is I think Rodgers will do a better job protecting the ball than Will Levis. I think that's what it's going to come down to. I think the Jets will be able to run the ball a little bit better than they did against San Francisco. I actually don't think the Jets look that bad against the Niners. I just think the Niners are that good. I don't think that the Titans have as complex or as tactical of an edge offensively as the Niners did over the Jets. They don't know their scheme as well as Shanahan does. I think the Titans will cover, though. I'm kind of in line with Big Al here. He says the Titans are number one in yards defensively with only 148 yards allowed. They still lost. I think this will be a defensive game. I think it's going to be in the teens, maybe the low 20s. And I think the Jets will probably go down the field and score a game-winning field goal to win. That's kind of the vibe I'm getting from this one. I think that the Jets have the secondary to cover the Titans. I don't think, like I said, they'll be pushed around in the running game, although I was impressed with Tennessee's running game and Tony Pollard. That was the best thing I saw from their offense. But Will Levis was spraying the ball everywhere. His accuracy was extremely inconsistent. His decision-making even worse, more erratic. And Rodgers looked good in terms of he looked like he could throw with accuracy, touch, timing. He still had the arm strength. He doesn't have the mobility, and that's a problem. But I don't think it's a huge deal. I think Garrett Wilson versus L'Jarius Sneed is going to be an excellent matchup. Allen Lazard showed up. Can Mike Williams and Tyler Conklin show up a little bit more? But overall, I think the Jets are the better team. They've got the more trustworthy quarterback, and now they've been put on notice against the Niners. So I think the Jets win, but the Titans will make this close because I like the Titans secondary. I like the Titans defense. I like how they looked in that game. And like I said, people are going to overreact to that result against the Bears and not give them enough credit for how dominant their defense was and really they probably should have won that game. So I'm going to go Titans to cover, Jets to win. Let's see what Outlier has to say about that game. So in terms of Titans and Jets, let's see if we can find it. Titans and Jets. There it is. So Tennessee has been pretty good against the spread overall as of late. A lot of that was with Mike Vrabel. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out of the last 8. No real trends here. Under has mostly hit for the Jets. This feels like another under, though. 40.5. This feels like a bit of an under to me because I do like more the defenses. I think the Jets will have a bounce-back performance defensively, and I thought the Titans were very impressive defensively. So I would lean towards the under 40.5. Money line, 86% of the bets on the Jets, 14% on the Titans, 79% of the money on the Jets. In terms of the bets, 81% on the spread on the Titans, but 65% of the money is on the Jets. Over, 82% of the bets, 51% of the money. A lot of more money is coming in on the under than the percentage of the bets. So this one's a tricky one, but I like the Jets to win the Titans to cover. Let's get to the next game. So, next up, we've got the New York Giants, Washington Commanders. This is probably like the most unpickable, unpettable? That as well, but unbettable game of week number 2. And because I don't really know what the heck's going to happen, I'm going to take the Commanders. They're favored by 1.5. They're at home. I think they suck, but I liked what I saw more out of the Commanders from an offensive standpoint than I did out of the Giants. I also felt like the Commanders' pass rush didn't look too bad against Tampa, especially from the interior. I think they'll be able to get a little bit of a pass rush on Daniel Jones to cause a mistake. Jaden Daniels' rushing ability can come in handy here. I do like the coaching staff of the Giants a little bit more than I like the Commanders, but I just think there's more like vibes, more fun vibes with Washington compared to the Giants. Like the Giants could like sit their quarterback at a moment's notice. Their secondary couldn't cover Singh out there last week. They made Sam Darnold look like Joe Montana. So I think Jaden Daniels could look good in this game. And hopefully they expand their playbook to throw the ball past a yard. Right? Like hopefully they don't just throw so many horizontal passes. They actually get a little bit more intermediate, a little bit more horizontal, less horizontal, more vertical in this game against the Giants. I don't know, man. I think the Commanders' defense is bad, but are they bad enough to lose to Daniel Jones is the question. So I'm going to go Commanders, and Miss Jennifer says, plus they have my Bobby Wagner. So that's reason enough to go with the Commanders. Let's see what Outlier has to say. I don't even want to waste any more time on this game. Like, if you're betting this game, you're a freak. That's all I'll say. The over for the Commanders has hit on 8 of the last 10. The under obviously lost 8 of the last 10. Commanders have only covered the spread 1 out of their last 10 games. They suck. And they've only won 1 of the last 10 games. Percentage of bets. 89% of the bets is on the Commanders. 96% of the money is on the Commanders for the money line. For the spread, 86% of the bets on the spread for the Giants, while the money is mostly on the Commanders at 74%. The over, 85% on the over. Meanwhile, 94% of the money is also on the over. So the over might be the only play, but again, you're talking about Daniel Jones. Do you really want to bet an over in a game that Daniel Jones is starting at quarterback? I don't know. You can do what you like with your own money. All right. Next up, we got the San Francisco 49ers at the Minnesota Vikings. 49ers look like the 49ers. Huge surprise to the degree that, people out there in the media, I don't want to say names, but Colin Cowherd, who picked the Rams to win the NFC West, has already flipped his pick to the Niners winning the Super Bowl in the span of 1 week. So that's just the way it goes, but the Niners are now going to a place where they lost last year on Monday Night Football. They played Minnesota on Monday night. No Justin Jefferson. Kirk Cousins probably had the best game I've ever seen him play in my life. Purdy made a couple bad mistakes against Brian Flores' defense. No Debo, no Trent Williams in that game last year. This year, there'll be no Christian McCaffrey, very likely. So, yeah, there were missing pieces last year, probably more substantial than missing, even Christian McCaffrey, as good as he is. So it's interesting, but this game's interesting from a spread perspective. I could see the Niners covering, but I could also see the Vikings covering. So I just don't know if we know enough about this incarnation of the Vikings to truly trust it either way. Yeah, I thought about picking the Niners as a best bet because I feel like they'll be motivated to revenge their loss from last year, as well as the fact that they know Sam Darnold really well. I mean, he was their backup quarterback last year. And being that, there's no Jordan Addison, there's no TJ Hawkinson, they only can focus on Justin Jefferson. So I kind of feel confident that the Niners defense will do a better job than they did last year. And I might very well be right. Niners might be a great bet here. So I do feel like I'm going to pick the Niners both ways, but I just don't know enough about the Vikings to truly trust it as a bet. So There's a difference between picking it and betting it. So I'm going to go with the Niners. I just feel like they're the much better team. I feel like if I were making this spread, despite the Vikings being at home, I feel like the Niners are like a much, much better team in my power rankings. They're my number 1 team. The Vikings are like my number 20 team. I think there's a bigger gap between number 20 and number 1 than only 6 points, despite being on the road. And like I said, I feel more confidence in the Niners defense. I like the way their defensive line looked. I like the way they stopped the run. I like the way that they got after Rodgers, but I also love the way they covered. They were tight in coverage. Even when they gave up plays, they were right there to make the play. They just, Garrett Wilson made a great catch or something, right? Rodgers made a great throw. I don't feel Sam Darnold's that same level, right? Like Sam Darnold, he's going to make more misses. He's going to feel the pressure. He's going to feel the ghosts a little bit more. But I do have enough respect for O'Connell and Flores to say, like, could Flores cook up a spicy game plan against Brock Purdy again and Shanahan to slow down the running game of Jordan Mason? It's possible, right? Like, could the Vikings defense really be that good? Like, they were dominant against the Giants. Their pass rush looked really good. Andrew Van Ginkel, Dallas Turner. The run defense was good last year. It should be good again this year. It was against the Giants. And, their secondary isn't half bad. So the Vikings are at home. Tough place to play. Good defense. A defense that I think schematically is different and tough to break down. I would expect Debo to have a big game here. If the Vikings are going to blitz, I feel like he's the guy to get the ball. As well, I think Ayuk could have a bit of a bounce back after having a little bit of a rough opener. I don't really see anyone on the Vikings being able to match him one-on-one. Purdy, I think, will not make the mistakes he made last year. So I'm going to go with San Francisco to win in a cover, but it's not one that I'm super, super confident about the cover. I do feel pretty good about the Niners winning, though, just because I don't feel like they're going to lose to the Vikings 2 years in a row. I just don't think the Vikings are a good enough team for that to happen. So taking a look at what OUTLIER has to say. Niners, any trends? Not really. I mean, late last year, they weren't great against the spread. They were obviously good on the money line. In terms of the money line, 92% to the Niners, 8% of the bets on the Vikings, 10% of the money on the Vikings, 90% of the money on the Niners. In terms of bets on the spread, 20% on the Niners, but 83% of the money is on the Niners. That's weird. And the over, 74% on the over, 69% of the money is on the under. If I were to bet this game, I think I actually lean towards the under, believe it or not. Despite it being in a dome, I know it's Shanahan and O'Connell, and it's a little scary, but I kind of feel good about both defenses in this game, despite that. So I think this was under 45.5 on Monday night last year, despite Kirk Cousins having a really good game too. So something to look at. Maybe the under is the play in this game. So Niners both ways. Next up, we've got the Saints at the Cowboys. Cowboys favored by 6.5. This is one where we're really going to learn how good the Cowboys are. And we're really going to learn how good the Saints are. And more importantly, we're really going to learn how the Saints are. Like how good they are. Because last week they played the Carolina Panthers. We've already talked at length how bad the Carolina Panthers are. The Panthers are absolutely atrocious. They suck. Now, this is different because the Saints are on the road. They're not in the Superdome. What was the Saints' biggest flaw entering the season? Their offensive line. What's the saying? Bad offensive lines don't travel well. They're taking on Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence. I'm taking the Cowboys to win, the Cowboys to cover. I like the Saints' defense. I think they can maybe give Dak a tough time, but what's the Saints' flaw on defense? Their pass rush. So I don't think they're going to overwhelm the Cowboys' offensive line neither. Mike McCarthy had a brilliant game plan against Cleveland. I think that he has a good game plan here. And as good as Lattimore and Adebo are in the secondary of New Orleans, I think Lamb can separate against anybody. Cooks made plays last week. He looked like Brandon Cooks. Ferguson or no Ferguson, Jalen Tolbert, time to step up, buddy. I don't think the Cowboys will run the ball well, but I think Dak will have a good game. And Dallas is always better at home, especially, on offense. They're better at home. So I think Dallas is one of those teams. Vegas always tries to figure them out, but they always, when they're favorites, they always seem to hammer teams. So I'm going to go Dallas to win, Dallas to cover. I think they win by like 14. I think it will be something like 30 to like 17, something like that. Or like 31-20 or something like that. That's kind of the way that I see this game going. I think New Orleans will hang in there, but I don't necessarily think they're on the level because the line of scrimmage of Dallas's defense, they're going to dominate the Saints O-line. It's going to make Derek Carr very uncomfortable. So let's take a look at the outlier stuff. So in terms of the trends, nothing too significant. I don't really see anything overall. Money line, 88% for the Cowboys, 69% of the money. There's 31% of the money coming on the Saints as an underdog. That's interesting. 78% of the bets are on the Saints to cover, but the Cowboys have 90% of the money. The over, 78% of the bets, 86% of the money. The over is 46.5. I would tend to agree. I think the over would be the play. Despite me liking both defenses in this game, I still think the over is the play because the Cowboys at home, these games just get wild. Like, I don't really know what to say. Like, these games just, I mean, how many games last year were there like 30 to 40 points scored, and then, the other team kind of scores the end? Like, yeah, man. All right. Big Al says, Cowboys win and cover. I don't trust the Saints O-line. Cowboys will dominate both the point of attack on both sides. He also likes the Niners to win, but the Vikings to cover in a revenge spot for San Francisco. Minnesota is noisy for the visitors. Singh likes the Cowboys 24-17. He also likes the Niners 31-10, bro. 31-10. All right. He also picked the Patriots. Shout out Singh. The Cincinnati Bengals at the Kansas City Chiefs. The marquee game of the week. Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes. This would have been much more lit and exciting if the Bengals would have won and would have looked good in week 1. But now there's all these questions. Are the Bengals even any good? Is Joe Burrow overrated? Can the Bengals even slow down the Chiefs at all? Are the Chiefs just way too good for the Bengals? All these things people are saying. And meanwhile, Singh is taking the Bengals 27-24. I really don't know, man. I feel like at the beginning of the year, when I broke down the schedule, I had the Bengals winning this game. I was high on the Bengals entering the season. But they don't have T. Higgins. The Chiefs don't have Marquise Brown. Not that that really matters. I think this is going to be a great game, though. I think the Bengals are going to rise to the occasion. I think they're going to give the Chiefs a tough game. I think they're going to play with fire, with heart, with passion, unlike week 1. I think part of it might even be that they were looking ahead to this game, and they didn't take the Patriots seriously. The Chiefs, though, have had 10 days of rest. The Chiefs have had 10 days to prepare. The Chiefs understand this moment. They understand that everybody's been talking about, Burrowhead. Joe Burrow, he's the only one that can beat Mahomes. They understand the spot as well. They understand everybody's going to be watching. So, from what I saw last week, there's just nothing in me that makes me believe I can pick the Bengals. Other than the history of the Bengals playing the Chiefs, there's nothing about how the Bengals played last week to where I can pick the Bengals. I just can't, straight up. I can't pick the Bengals. I'm sorry. Because the Bengals, they couldn't stop the run well enough. Burrow didn't play well enough. They didn't protect well enough. And now they're playing a better team on the road. What makes you think the Bengals can win? But that's just the NFL for you. You never know what to expect. Anything can happen. I'm going to take the Bengals to cover, though. I really want the Bengals to win because I want the Bengals to be good because the Bengals are good for the NFL. Burrow is really bad in September. Big Al is absolutely correct. The Bengals are really bad in September. They take a long time to get going. And I just can't simply look at that tape, that film, and say, yeah, maybe things didn't go the Bengals' way, and maybe Tanner Hudson fumbled at the 1-yard line, and maybe they muffed a punt, but they still lost the New England Patriots. And I've been hearing about how my Patriots are the worst team ever created, ever formed, ever rostered in football history for the past 4 months. And you expect me to pick the damn Bengals against the champs after losing to that team that I heard was the worst team ever? No, I can't do it. I'm not a jabroni. That being said, do I think that the Bengals play the Chiefs well? Yes. Do I think Big Lou gives Mahomes a couple issues every single time? Yes. Did I like how the Bengals secondary played against New England? Yes. Do I feel like their run defense improved last year? Or not last year, but in the second half? Yes. Do I think that the safeties look good for them last week? Yes. Do I think that the offense should play better this week? Because Zach Taylor always does a good job against the Chiefs? Yes. So do I think Burrow will rise to the occasion? Jamar Chase rise to the occasion? Do I think they're looking forward to this game? Absolutely, the Bengals are looking forward to it. So it's human nature. They're going to get up for this game. They're going to lose 27-23. The Chiefs will win because they're better right now. And that's what I think. So let's take a look at what OUTLIER has to say about this match. I really hope the Bengals win. But I'm picking the Chiefs. But I'm picking the Bengals plus the points. So, Chiefs have won 8 out of the last 10, and they've won, what, like 7 in a row? 8 in a row? So there you have it. The under has been very successful, and I actually like the under in this game for the most part. I know I said my score prediction was 27-23, which, that contradicts it. But judging off how Burrow looked last week and how the Bengals defense, I thought, kind of looked decent in the secondary, right? The Chiefs, I don't think the Chiefs will be able to run the ball as well as New England did. I will say that because the Chiefs' run game isn't that good. So I will say that I feel like the Bengals defense doesn't match up too poorly with the Chiefs offense, but I feel like the Chiefs will still struggle a little bit to move the ball without T. Higgins. So the under 47.5, given the trends with the Chiefs, that does feel interesting to me. And also the last 4 unders have hit for the Bengals as well. So the under might be the look in this game at 47.5. Now the money line, 94% on the Chiefs, 94% of the money on the Chiefs. 79% of the bets on the spread on the Bengals, but 87% of the money is on the Chiefs. 68% of the over bets is on the over. 60% of the money is on the over. So that's my breakdown of Bengals Chiefs, guys. I hope the Bengals win, but I can't do it. I won't do it. Okay, I won't do it. Singh says we need more people in the YouTube members and Discord. Yeah, we'll get those people cooking, all right? If you guys aren't already in the Discord and you're a YouTube member, we have an exclusive YouTube member patron chat in the Discord where you can chat for free. It's absolutely free. So go check it out. All right? The Discord link is in like most of my videos. So if you just check the description, you'll be able to find the Discord links to the BLV Discord. All right. What game's next? We've got the Los Angeles Rams, the Arizona Cardinals. Cardinals are favored by 1.5. Claire says go Bengals. Absolutely, Claire. Absolutely, but unfortunately I can't pick them because I'm a coward. Sorry. The Rams are underdogs against the Cardinals. This one's tough, man, because The Cardinals looked good in the first half last week. The Cardinals were up on Buffalo in Buffalo. Arizona is a weird place to play, typically. And the Rams are very injured. Like, very injured. The offensive line is beat up. Puka Nacua is beat up, not playing. Darius Williams out. Despite that, the Rams still looked good on defense against Detroit. It's one of the best offenses in the league, but they wore down late in the game. Could the Cardinals find similar success running the ball against the Rams as the Lions did late in the game? They've got the added dimension of Kyler Murray as well. You would have to think this would be the week Marvin Harrison Jr. lets the NFL know who he is. Last week he faced Rasul Douglas, Christian Benford, good corners. This week he faces washed Trey White. So you would think this is the week. Trey McBride should have the edges in the middle of the field as well as Greg Dortch. So Kyler should be able to move the ball here. The Cardinals should be able to move the ball through the air and on the ground. This is an interesting NFC West game. Jennifer's going to be keeping a close eye on it. Both defenses I don't love, but I loved how the Rams played last week. I think the Cardinals defense is pretty lousy. I think even with the missing pieces on the O-line and at wide receiver for the Rams, I still feel like Kyren, Stafford, Kupp, McVay can get the ball moving through the air and on the ground. And I feel like this is going to be like a field goal game, 4-point game, either way. And I really don't know who to pick, and I'm just deciding right now. I want to pick the Rams based on how they played last week. But what scares me is this game is in Arizona. I'm going to check the injury report real quick just to understand what I'm looking at here. So the Rams injury report. Oh, this is tough, man. Kevin Dotson won't practice, but McVay said they will be careful with him this week with the expectation he'll be able to make it to Sunday. Kobe Durant won't practice, while Rob Havenstein and Christian Roseboom will be limited. Well, those guys didn't really play last week. Obviously, Max Melton has a concussion. The Cardinals put their right tackle, Jonah Williams, on IR. Jeez, man. I'm going to go with the Rams. Don't bet this game. Don't bet it. I'm going to go with the Rams because I just thought they were the more impressive team last year. That's it. Or not last year. Last week. Not last year. I'm going to go with the Rams because I just think their defense played better last week. So I'll go with them, and I'll trust Stafford to come through. I think he's the better quarterback. McVay's the better coach. So I'm going to lean on the fundamentals here. But Rams, 7 out of 10. Money line. Meanwhile, Cardinals, 3 out of 10. Spread-wise, Rams have been very good against the spread. They've won 7, pushed 1, and lost 2 out of the last 10. The over has been 5-5 for the Rams, so nothing indicates for the over. 69% of the bets on the Rams money line, 31% on the Cardinals, 25% of the money on the Cardinals, 75% of the money on the Rams, 22% of the bets on the Rams, 78% of the bets on the spread for the Cardinals. Meanwhile, money is 96% to 4% for the Rams. Now, over 58% of the bets on the over, 72% of the money. It should be high scoring, says Singh. I agree. Even with the injuries to the offensive lines, I do think it should be high scoring. Again, guys, I'm going Rams. I don't know. Next, the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Denver Broncos. I have a better feel for this game. I'm going Steelers to win. Steelers to cover. The Steelers looked good on defense last week, as expected. They could have the best defense in football. They're playing a rookie quarterback. And Denver is at home, and Denver is a tough place to play in the first game in September, in the humidity and the obviously mile-high factor. But Steelers are a better team. I think the Steelers will be able to do their bread and butter here. Rush the quarterback, win up front, run the ball on Denver, which is not a very good run defense. I think that Joey Porter can lock down Cortland Sutton just as he did Drake London. And I think, honestly, like, Bo Nix is not good. He looked terrible against Seattle. He struggled against the Seattle defense. This is going to be a low-scoring game. But at 2.5 and not 3.5, I would lean towards the Steelers. I do have them significantly higher in my power rankings. This game is in Denver, which is a little scary. But I don't give a coaching edge to Sean Payton the way I typically do because he's facing Mike Tomlin. I think Arthur Smith will game plan enough plays in the running game with Justin Fields and Najee Harris to be able to move the ball against Denver in a weaker run defense, which they faced a good run defense in Atlanta last week. So I kind of like the matchup for Pittsburgh in that regard, but it will be a grind, like an absolute grind. The only thing that really scares me is Fields getting sacked and turning it over. But Bo Nix is definitely liable to do that and more as well. So it's not like it really goes one way or the other. If Russell Wilson were starting here, I'd have a lot more confidence in the Steelers. But either way, I'm going to take Pittsburgh to win, Pittsburgh to cover. They beat a better team on the road, 18-10 in Atlanta. And now they're 2.5-point favorites. You know, they were underdogs in that game. But 2.5-point favorites against a worse team on the road. So I'm going to take Pittsburgh. 88% of the bets for Pittsburgh on the money line, 12% on Denver. 92% of the money on Pittsburgh, 8% on Denver. 88% of the money, bets are on Denver on the spread. 67% of the money is on Denver on the spread. Meanwhile, a lot of money on the over and bets on the over, which is interesting because the total is 36.5. I kind of feel like this is going to be like 17-14, like 20-17 at the max, like 14-13, like just ugly. But honestly, I think Pittsburgh probably wins, like, if I had to get like 20-13 or something like that. That's probably my score if I had to give it a score. 20-14, 20-13. Something like that. So I'll take Pittsburgh. Next up, our Sunday night football game, the Chicago Bears at the Houston Texans. This is going to be a best bet. I like the Texans -6. I like the Texans to win and to cover. It's in Houston. It's the home opener for the Texans. This is a season filled with hype, and they have a rookie quarterback coming to their house. An offensive line that had struggles with Tennessee, couldn't really block the Titans, and Caleb Williams looked atrocious. So I'm taking the Texans. I just think they're an elite team. I think they looked, maybe a little worse than people expected defensively last week because they were playing Shane Steichen in week 1 on the road and a Colts team that knows them well and knows DeMeco Ryans well. I don't love Shane Waldron. I don't love what I've seen out of Caleb. I don't love the Bears offense right now. I love the Houston offense. I think Houston can run the ball in Chicago. I think that there's too much to deal with at receiver for the Texans, as good as the Bears defense is. I just feel like Stroud will make more plays. Like, Will Levis missed so many open guys, missed open target. Like, the Titans were up 17-0. If that happens with the Texans, they're not coming back. The Bears couldn't even score a point through their offense last week. Like, they couldn't do crap, bro. So, Will Anderson, Danielle Hunter with the crowd noise. Give me those boys. I'm going to go Texans in a big way. They make a statement in a primetime setting. So, Outlier has it as 92% of the bets on the money line for the Texans, 97% of the money on the Texans. 87% of the bets on the spread for Chicago, 92% of the money on the Texans. Weird. Over 73% of the bets on the over, 53% of the money on the over. In terms of the trends, Chicago's been good against the spread as of late, 8 out of 10. Houston has not, 2 out of 10. So that's contradictory to what I'm doing here. The under, though, has been pretty successful for both teams. So maybe the under is the play. 8 out of 10 for Chicago, 7 out of 10 for Houston. Okay. But I will say Houston was a lot better at home on offense last season. And I would expect they'll be good once again. Joe Mixon, another big game for him. And Monday Night Football, the Atlanta Falcons. Ultra versus the Philadelphia Eagles. Eagles. Big Al. Eagles. Favored by 6.5. Shout out to Apple Juice AC, who will be at this game. I am going with the Eagles to win, but I'm going to take the Falcons to cover. I'm going to take the Falcons to cover. I don't believe in the Eagles defense yet. That's my problem. I don't believe in the Eagles defense quite yet. I think the Falcons can run the ball a little bit on the Eagles. I think Drake London should have a better game. I think Kyle Pitts has mismatches. Cousins, week 2, a little bit more comfortable. I think people are sleeping on how good the Steelers defense is. But I do think the Eagles will give the Falcons a tough time. I do think Jalen Hurts will have a more successful game through the air than he did last week. Like, maybe not as many mistakes. But, you know, because of the depth of their weaponry, you would expect Devontae Smith to have a big game. If A.J. Terrell is covering A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith could be the beneficiary of that. I think that the Eagles can block the Falcons up front, run the ball with Saquon a little bit, keep them on their toes, but I think Hurts could make some explosive passes down the field as well. So the way I see it is, as long as Cousins isn't terrible here, which the Eagles kind of own him, but in Philadelphia specifically, in primetime specifically, Monday Night Kirk, but I just think it will be close. Like, I think it will be entertaining. So I'm going to go like 27-21 Philadelphia. That's the type of game I'm expecting. Maybe kind of sort of similar to the Vikings and Eagles last year on primetime. I think it was Monday, maybe. But sort of similar to that game, perhaps. Eagles are the better team. Eagles are expected to win. I just still have my questions about the Eagles defense, which doesn't make me certain they're going to cover a pretty decent number against a team that I still think is decent in the Falcons, despite their underwhelming week 1 performance. So that's all for me. It was a long one, I think. Week 2 preview. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, Gronk spike the like button. If you want to be in the chat next week, become a YouTube member of the Bottom Line View, $3 Canadian a month, and you get the member access to any members-only chats just like this each and every Wednesday night. Gronk spike the like button, subscribe. My best bets will be out soon. Thank you guys so much. Check out the Patreon, $10 a month for all of my bets. Or if you just want to support me on membership or Patreon, you can do that as well. Discord is free, so go check it out. The community is always lit, especially on Sundays. So go check out the Discord. If you're not in there already, get in there. Thanks for watching. It's Mitch. Peace. Thank you to the members for watching.